Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thank you as always for stopping by. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Powell's support for more rate hikes sent US 2-year yields to the highest in nearly a decade and lifted the dollar broadly. But we're still within range, but we're now right at the top of the range for the dollar. A break above 96 probably sends us up to 100. Yesterday, I said in my podcast, I think Netflix is a monster buy. Netflix, of course, slumped after releasing earnings and fell as far as $350, and then subsequently had a nice 11% bounce. I like to think on my recommendation. Netflix is my second recommended trade of the year in the international markets, after Twitter, which I recommended on January the 2nd. Still suggest we keep holding it. The point about Netflix is, in my opinion, the new market is the international one, and Netflix is only just getting started. And yesterday I recommended buying Netflix heavily at the price of $349. Netflix is up 100% since December. This caught my attention. The mobile payments revolution in China has happened with breathtaking speed and scale. Almost half the world's digital payments in 2017 were made in China. Home thoughts: the youngest daughter, Hannah, who was once known as Hannah Banana, but woe betide you mentioning the same, because she is quite a grand 12-year-old these days, but I'm sure would behave as elegantly as Her Majesty the Queen did with the Donald, has become a very keen horse rider. There is a scene in Mira Nair's MONSOON wedding. The father and the mother are about to marry their daughter. Go to see her in her room where she must have stayed when she was a young child, and she's sleeping, and they're looking down on her sleeping. And this morning Hannah was fast asleep, and I leant down to kiss her, and I thought of that father, that Mira Nair movie in that moment. And Nisha saw me immediately afterwards and knew my frame of mind intuitively, as she always does. The film I'm talking about is MONSOON Wedding, 2001. The director was Mira Nair. This is a photograph I took of in Eastleigh yesterday morning as I traversed the back of Nairobi. And then this caught my attention from Rene Redzepi of Noma, Mulberries, Morus rubra. Could possibly be the best berry of them all. The deep red colour is almost an omen for its deep, rich flavour. It's like 10 blackberries, 10 cherries, 10 raspberries, 10 blueberries in one single goddamn mouthful. Political reflections: Mandela was a skillful strategist, a visionary. The tapestry of his legacy is woven by deep thinkers and freedom fighters, as well as the unnamed and unknown who sharpened his intellect, said Graça Machel yesterday on the occasion of the Nelson Mandela lecture. And then I listened to most of the lecture by Barack Obama, and lots of things caught my attention. He said he called these times the strange and uncertain times we're in. Head-spinning and disturbing headlines. That he was marking the 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's birth, calling it strange and uncertain. Much of the world looking to return to an older, more brutal way of doing business. Populist movements funded by billionaires. Strongmen politics are in the ascendance. A growing backlash. 9/11, Russia suddenly started reasserting authoritarian control. China started bristling. He's still keen on bending the arc of the world towards justice, and he hailed back to the moment when you watched Madiba walking out of prison. The forces of progress were on the march that day, he says. And that takes me back to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, about whom I said these 90 or so days represent the most consequential arrival of an African politician on the African stage since Mandela walked out of prison, blinking in the sunlight and constructed his rainbow nation. Wall Street Journal's leading with an article, Ethiopia's young new leader shakes up one-party system. In this strategically vital nation of 100 million, a charismatic young leader is delivering shock therapy to one of the world's most entrenched one-party systems. Cyril Ramaphosa said of Barack Obama, he cannot dance as well as Madiba can dance. And I take you back to this photograph, which is probably my favorite of Madiba. Love or hate him, former US President Barack Obama is an excellent public speaker, Haru Mutasa. Watching him speak today for the first time, I'm in the same stadium he is in. Wanderers, the man has something of presence, she said. I responded by saying I could not agree more, Haru. I miss his linguistic ability to lift our chins and our gaze. But this speech had a dark Joker figure lurking in the background. President Trump has reversed his remark on Russia meddling in the US election. Have a listen to a BBC World video. He says he reviewed a video of his press conference with Putin and wants to clarify. I said the word would instead of wouldn't, Trump says. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Hervé tweeted to me, the new professor of semiotics in a damage control. Quite something to see Trump on the defensive and strictly reading from a paper. That surely makes everyone's doubts on the sincerity of this exercise. That took me back to December 2016 when I characterized Trump as a linguistic warfare specialist. Trump is a linguistic warfare specialist. Look at the names he gave his opponents: Crooked Hillary, Lying Ted, Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb. They were devastating and terminal. The first thing is plausible deniability. The second is non-linearity. You have to learn how to navigate a linear system in a non-linear way. As per three sources, Kelly privately lobbied congressional Republicans to rebuke Trump publicly for Putin presser. And that probably explains why he was reading his notes. And then Pepe Escobar weighs in on Asia Times, a walk on the wild side as Trump meets Putin at Finland Station. Trump treats the EU with undisguised disdain. He would love nothing better than for the EU to dissolve. His Arab partners can easily be controlled by fear. He has all but declared economic war on China and is on tariff overdrive, even as the IMF warns that the global economy runs the risk of losing around $500 billion in the process. And he faces the ultimate intractable, the China-Russia-Iran axis of Eurasian integration, which simply won't go away. So talking to world-class thug Putin in usual suspect terminology is a must. A divide and rule here, a deal there. Who knows what some hustling will bring? To paraphrase Lou Reed, New Trump City is the place where they say, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. During the Helsinki presser, Putin, fresh from Russia's spectacular World Cup soft power PR coup, passed the football to Trump. The US president said he would give it to his son Barron and passed the ball to the First Lady Melania. Well, the ball is now in Melania's court. I thought this was a Photoshop, but it's not. This is Maria Butina, arrested for being a Russian spy in the Oval Office with Trump. Let's move on to the currency markets, where we've seen the dollar strengthen quite considerably. Euro dollar 116.21, dollar index 95.18, jumped just under 0.5% overnight and now is following through. Japanese yen 113.03. This is the weakest yen since January. Swiss franc 10020, pound 130.87, Aussie 0.7350, that's fallen. India rupee 68.54, South Korean won, the dollar caught a bid there, last at 11.3066. The Brazilian real 383.80, Egyptian pound 17.9003, and the South African rand 13.3148. I was saying it looked rich on the range. Dollar index, we're now pushing up to the top of the range, and it's putting pressure all across the markets. There goes sterling again, that's JS Blockland, now at 130.87. The pound suffered another bout of Brexit blues after British Prime Minister Theresa May only just cleared the latest parliamentary hurdle to her leaving plans. Wednesday's edition of the Times reported May threatened rebel lawmakers in her own party with a general election if they defeated the bill. Bank of England Governor Mark Carney warned a no-deal Brexit would have big economic consequences and force a review of plans to raise interest rates. Sterling was huddled at 130.90 after sliding 0.9% on Tuesday. She's turned out to be much, much weaker than I expected her to behave after the night of the long knives and checkers. She's got to stand firm, otherwise she's going to be rolled over. And in a way, sterling is now correlated to that. Euro dollar 116.20, 115.15 remains key. We've fallen away again after looking as if we were trying to firm up. Korean won, some panicking buyers near the close. That's from Sun Chartist. More Chinese firms are pledging to buy back their shares as authorities seek to stem a $2 trillion equity market rout. China. Bitcoin, now that's interesting, that had a huge pop yesterday, blew through 7,000, last trading at 7,425. Nuriel, who is a bear, said Bitcoin literally spiking up by almost 10% in about 30 minutes today based on no news. So the only explanation can be price manipulation. Since Tether recently printed another $200 million of fake money, and since research proves Tether used to manipulate Bitcoin, manipulation is at work again, Nuriel says. Commodity markets, gold broke below 1226. We're now at 1223. T Commodity, who posted this chart, is talking about it either falling to 1180, rallying to 1248. It trades very heavy right now. It's down about 5% year to date. It has not been a good store of value. Gold is at a 1-year low. Silver is at a 2-year low. This is a chart from Holger. West Texas Intermediate crude oil fell 0.5%. Overnight, we've come off the boil there. Brent crude had two of its largest single-day dollar declines in years over the past week. Lisa Abramovitz. And then finally, this is a Brent crude chart from T Commodity as well. It trades heavy. It seems the Chinese are committed to buying Iranian oil. Last week in Brazil, I started an Instagram account. Follow me to see my photos. That's Malala. Sub-Saharan Africa, this is the Africa perspective in the IMF's latest update. The recovery in Sub-Saharan Africa is set to continue, supported by the rise in commodity prices, which have reversed, by the way, quite dramatically in the last month. For the region, growth is expected to increase from 2.8% in 2017 to 3.4% this year, rising further to 3.8% in 2019. They bumped up their forecast for 2019 by 0.1 percentage point. The upgraded forecast reflects improved prospects for Nigeria. Its growth is set to increase from 0.8% in 2017 to 2.1% in 2018 and 2.3% in 2019. 0.4 percentage point higher than in the April projection, on the back of an improved outlook for oil prices, despite the weaker than expected first quarter outturn in South Africa, in part due to temporary factors. The economy is expected to recover somewhat over the remainder of 2018 and into 2019 as confidence improvements associated with the new leadership are gradually reflected in strengthening private investment. This paper discusses Al-Shabaab's financial system and estimates the amount collected by the group. They're estimating that the group collects about $27 million. It's a very interesting article, well worth reading. This caught my attention. The collection season, which is traditionally the month of Ramadan, the starting rate is 1 camel out of every 25 camels owned and 1 goat out of every 40 goats. Collection is done uniformly across all the regions in South and Central Somalia, including in the districts that AS does not control. Collectors issue receipts to pastoralists. Those who lose their receipts are made to pay the taxes again in the next year. This ensures that pastoralists who were away from Al-Shabaab territory during the preceding year do not escape payment of zakat. And then each truck that goes through the area is taxed $555, while larger trucks are taxed $1,150 each time they use the road while carrying goods. I think they had considerably more than $27 million. Angola's $500 million Eurobond on Monday shows that some investors still can't resist high yields, even amid an emerging market sell-off. And then Bloomberg says it takes some brazenness for a nation rated 6 steps into junk territory with the world's worst performing currency to issue a Eurobond in this market. Angola did that on Monday, selling $500 million of 30-year debt in only the third dollar-denominated deal from an emerging market government since May. This sale suggests that even with sentiment toward emerging markets turning much more bearish in the past 3 months, some investors still can't resist higher returns. I think, Angola, which is rated B- by S&P, it has its problems. They devalued the Kwanza by 35% this year, for example. But, above average yields have supported Angola as the 3rd best performer this year in the Bloomberg Barclays Emerging Markets Sovereign Bond Index. And you'll remember at the beginning of the year, I said I like what I'm seeing there. South African all shares down 5.7% this year, dollar versus rand. I said it, the rand looked rich on a range trading basis yesterday. We backed up to 13.3177. Egyptian pound is at 17.9023. That's barely budged, but that's because they devalued a couple of years ago and took all the pain then. Egypt is to begin a process for offering stakes in 5 state firms. Nigerian all-share minus 3.35% year-to-date. Ghana Stock Exchange up 11.24% year-to-date. Coming to Kenya, Tullow Oil says may have to halt operations at northern Kenyan oil fields. Essential supplies necessary to run Kapezi Integrated Operation Base IOB will run out in the next 14 days, after which we will have no option other than a complete shutdown of the camp, Martin Berger said in a statement. This is all about the license to operate, and I think Tullow have been quite clumsy in their entire approach. Nairobi all shares up 0.6% year-to-date. Kenya Safaricom is in advanced talks to take M-Pesa to Ethiopia. This is Reuters. Introduce its popular M-Pesa mobile money service to neighboring Ethiopia, a market of 100 million people, 2 sources said on Tuesday. Britain's Vodafone, Safaricom's parent company, will license the use of the M-Pesa trade name to an Ethiopia-based bank, while Safaricom will host the service in Nairobi, one telecoms industry source told Reuters. Ethiopia's state telecommunications monopoly, Ethio Telecom, will carry the service, the source added. Started in 2007, M-Pesa has nearly 30 million users in Kenya. June 6th, and prior to that, but on June 6th, I said I expect Vodacom to work through Safaricom. This can add up to 20% to Safaricom's share price. It's a big deal. Ethiopia's 100 million market and ripe for the taking for M-Pesa in particular, I said. Other articles I wrote about the M-Pesa economy in an article on the 25th of June called Don't Kill the Goose That Lays the Golden Egg. 2nd of July, I also said I'm sure our very own Safaricom must have already presented the Prime Minister Abiy with a copy of the MIT research on M-Pesa, which confirmed access to mobile money services increased daily per capita consumption levels of 2% of Kenyan households, lifting them out of extreme poverty. This is an MIT report. M-Pesa's move also suggests Kenyan businesses are well placed to take advantage of a wave of political and economic liberalization unleashed in the last 3 months by Prime Minister Abiy. I think Maggie's completely correct at Reuters. Safaricom was likely to be paid 10 to 25% of annual revenue from the new M-Pesa business in Ethiopia for providing the back end of the technology, analysts said. Revenue from Safaricom's 20 million M-Pesa users in Kenya, which is less than half the population of Ethiopia, was 63 billion shillings, $630 million. This is an important milestone for Safaricom, said Eric Musa. You can say that again. NSE 20 is down 11.36% year to date. Safaricom share price data is also on rich wrap-ups towards the bottom of the page. Kenya Power's board flouted regulations in naming new teams, says the Capital Markets Authority, and it really was a peculiar intervention. Kenya Power, I wrote about it over the weekend. I said it's down 28% year to date, second only to ARM. And I was quoting Jesse Livermore, who said markets are never wrong, only opinions are. If you want to dive into the share price, please scroll down Rich Wrap-Ups, and the link is there as well. Once again, thank you kindly for stopping by. I'm always grateful.